Allora ti
Posso
devi...
provare?
Sì.
Yes, thanks.
Fai esca da qua e togli questo schermo e la presentazione è questa e la lanci e fai...
Poi,
Esatto.
poi immagino. Quindi, va bene, adesso la chiudo.
Esco.
Ok, quindi ESC era all'inizio
E vogliono
e
questo.
chiudere quello, va bene.
Hi, Phoebe. You're still on mute.
Hi, Marcus. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Where are you?
I am good. I am good. I am back now. I am back.
Okay.
Guys,
Where are you?
I'm in
everyone,
UAE.
everyone can hear you in the room, actually. Yes.
It's good.
Just to be aware.
Yes, this was a test.
Welcome, Phoebe.
Hello.
It's Marinella. We are going to start. We are waiting the room to be,
Thank you
okay.
very much.
We are about to start.
Thank you much.
Very good.
But
very
you are
good.
not muted. Be aware that you are not muted.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Can you please enable our share function so that we can share?
It should be already.
It's not. It's not.
It's not. But
No.
the guy. Yes, this is Phoebe. You will allow her to share the screen at the right now. Okay, he's going to do it right now.
Hello, Phoebe. This is Julia. So, I mean, okay, your name was is in Greek, so that's why. Now they are identifying you. Okay.
My name is in Greek. What do you mean?
Written in Greek characters. Okay, so that's why they were having a little bit of a difficulty, but now they found your name properly. Okay. Now you should be able to share.
Okay, let me try to see if it actually works, please. Because yesterday I've done another visual and it didn't work. So just let me try that it works. Can you see my slides?
Yes.
They are on the screen and they are changing?
Yes, I can see you. Yes. They are a bit slowing in changing, but yeah. I can see you both and also the slide.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Hello, hello. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We're about to start this side event, so I'd like to welcome all of you who are here in the room and those of you who are joining us online. The title of the side event is Launching a European Climate Science Assessment Mechanism for Policy Support, and it's organised by CMCC, EAERE and SISC, and this side event will hear from an expert panel. 5 of the panel are in the room and 2 of them are coming in through a virtual link. Unfortunately, I must say our first speaker, my minister, is not able to join us. He's here in Sharm el-Sheikh, but he is caught up in the negotiations on loss and damage. And if you've been following the process here, will know that that is one of the most intense issues under consideration. One of the most, obviously a really important issue. So he's been caught up in a lot of bilaterals and negotiations and engagement with all of the actors there. So he sends his apologies. What he wants to say as well is that he offers his full support to this initiative. And I just want to say a few words about the initiative. Essentially, we are looking at a European assessment mechanism for enhancing our understanding of the scientific basis for actions on climate change. As many of you will know, that Europe is genuinely a leader in climate sciences. Currently, 3 of the IPCC co-chairs who have delivered the 3 IPCC special reports and the 3 IPCC working group reports are based in Europe. The scientific excellence is based, or this scientific excellence is based on the long-term investments in climate change research and observation infrastructure that we have been making in Europe over a long period of time. And these would include investments in infrastructure such as the Copernicus observation system, the integrated carbon observation system, and we're embarking on new developments such as the Twin Earth Destiny project, which is a high-resolution modeling system. We also know that we need to enhance and expedite the returns from our investments in research and systematic observations, and we need to do this in a systematic manner. This is increasingly important as the urgency of acting on climate change is now more apparent than ever, and we also need to ensure that what we do in response to these challenges is informed by the best available science. We also need to assist and work better with the international bodies and processes that inform our collective action and support, and also support the work. And by this I mean the IPCC, which has been fundamental to the establishment of the body that we are attending here and has informed this work since its foundation. In Europe, we have the ability to update, focus on and localise the information provided by the IPCC in its assessment reports, and we wish to do this. And there are good reasons for doing this. One of them is we have to work. One is we need to work with and inform our actions by the latest science. And 2, in doing this, we can assist the IPCC in developing its future reports. The aim is to have a European scientific assessment process which is focused on the essence of the 3 challenges of climate change. Those are achieving climate neutrality, climate resilience, and managing transition and transformation. This can work with and enhance existing activities in Europe and assist in making sense of very complex issues and difficult topics, and communicate effectively with policymakers and practitioners. We're envisaging working on a 2-year cycle, building on existing activities such as the biennial climate change or the European Climate Change Adaptation Conference, ECA, which is already a flagship event in the European calendar, and turning it into a dynamic forum for science policy and science practitioner dialogues based around the latest science, but focus on the information for those who are using it and ensuring that decisions that are made and investments that are made are correct for a climate resilient future. I mention ECA in particular because the next ECA conference will take place in Dublin, and I would hope to see many of you there. So that is just one example, and there are many out there, but I don't want to take up time doing this. So I'll now return to my chairing duties, and well, I'll go back to the chair and ask the next speaker to come along to the podium. Terry, thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Honourable delegates, representatives of the scientific community, dear friends. I will not need to convince any participants here, but just to state the obvious, science and knowledge are essential to addressing the causes and the consequences of climate change. Finland plans to be climate neutral by 2035 and climate negative or carbon negative or climate positive after that. That objective and the greenhouse gas reduction targets for 2030, even closer, it seems. So our objective to be climate neutral by 2035 and climate positive or carbon negative thereafter, and the greenhouse gas reduction targets for 2030 and 2040 and for 2050 that are also incorporated in our National Climate Act were all set on the basis of advice from our National Climate Panel and their assessment on what is consistent for Finland to be in line with 1.5-degree commitment. Likewise, in preparing our policies and measures and climate programs to meet our obligations under the EU climate policies and to plan our path to climate neutrality, the independent assessment and recommendations of our climate science panel are an invaluable support and reference points for the government and our parliament, as well as civil society holding us to account. Friends, there is a need to accelerate the development and transfer of knowledge from science to policymakers and practitioners. In my view, it would be very useful to build on and support existing activities of global bodies such as the IPCC, assessment reports and special reports at European level with more frequent authoritative updates on the latest available science on key challenges such as achievement of climate neutrality and climate resilience, as was raised by Frank earlier. We should aim for a European focus, but with a global reach. Hence, I very much welcome this initiative and this new mechanism and the proposed process for biennial European scientific assessment or stocktaking to address key operational and strategic gaps in Europe. And last but not least, in order for the policymaker to be able to rely on science and for our domestic and European climate science panels to be able to provide us the advice we need to ensure that we continue to have top-level research in all of the key research disciplines that are needed for effective climate action and resilience supported by European research programs. It makes sense to pool resources and enhance collective coordination of climate-related research programs across the European research area. So with these words, I look forward to the announced European Climate Science Summit next year. Perhaps we will meet each other there. Thank you.
This is it. Hello. Hello. Thank you very much, Terry. That was a really nice presentation. I now have the pleasure to hand over to Jean-Pascal and Ypersele, who is a long-time colleague and friend and one of the most famous names in climate science, former vice chair of the IPCC and potentially the future role there. So thank you very much, Jean-Pascal. Please. Whichever is more comfortable. I still come here because I prepared some remarks here. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. I think I will be very short because I think with all this noise, we're all tired, so I don't think I need to be very long. After 2 weeks of talk, I think we all understand that climate change related information relevant to policymakers can be at the same time overwhelming. I think after 2 weeks here, we're all overwhelmed by scientific information and information about other issues as well. But also sometimes, even if it's overwhelming, inadequate. It can be inadequate actually for a number of reasons. For example, because it doesn't answer the question that policymakers and citizens of the world are asking. Or because the information is not presented or packaged or digested in the appropriate form. The IPCC has been mentioned a number of times in this session already over the last few minutes. And I would like maybe to spend a little time to explain why this is so and how maybe the way the IPCC is doing its work can be relevant in the European context, which is on the table tonight. The IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, has received from the United Nations General Assembly in 1988 a mandate to assess in the most rigorous and transparent way the published information about the scientific, technical and socio-economic aspects of climate change. And it must do so, part of its procedures, must do so in a way that is at the same time policy relevant and without being policy prescriptive. Those are two very important guidelines of the IPCC work. And the way the IPCC has organized its work over the years and the factors behind its success and probably in part why it received the Nobel Peace Prize in 2007 includes, I believe, the following elements which might be useful when reflecting on what could be useful as well at the European level. First, at the beginning of the preparation of an assessment process, an extended scoping process. The scoping process is very important. It happens at the beginning of the preparation of every IPCC report, and it involves a dialogue between scientists, governments, stakeholders, experts from different quarters, and it's very important to prepare the best table of contents for the reports in preparation. Then another element, and I don't pretend to have an exhaustive list, but another important element is the diversity in the author teams. Diversity in terms of disciplines involved, geography, gender, experience, some younger authors, some authors with more experience. It's important to have a variety, a diversity there as well. A third set of elements are the rigorous procedures the IPCC has in terms of usage of the literature, mostly peer-reviewed literature, which constitute the core of the information basis that the IPCC has to use in its proceedings. And then a very important element is 2 full review cycles involving thousands of experts through all the world who participate to the review process of the IPCC report, and also a final approval process where governments are involved, which helps to develop a sense of ownership by the members of IPCC, the governments of the world, a sense of ownership which is very important to make sure that at the end of the process the reports can be welcomed by everybody. That's the aim, at least. And this process, the development of that sense of ownership, is based on the review process, the fact that the authors have to answer each comment, and also, as I said, the final approval plenary, where there is a very fertile dialogue between the authors and the governments, with the authors, and that's very important, having the last words about what's in the summary for policymakers. And the summary for policymaker, which I mentioned, is a very important element. It's a relatively compact, sometimes I'd like to see it a little more compact, document which summarizes the key messages of each report. Now, as Frank said, much of the scientific information assessed by IPCC comes either from the EU or from research funded by the EU, and there is much excellence in all of that work, but maybe it has not been used in the EU itself in the most effective manner up to now. And as we know, the climate extremes are multiplying, the temperature is rising, it's on my tie here, and there's a call for increased resilience after the extreme events we have seen over the last few years: forest fires in the southern part of Europe, floods in Germany and Belgium, impacts of droughts on agriculture, on a lot of agricultural production in Europe. There's an increasing call for developing more resilience in Europe, and also an increasing pressure, of course, to decrease emissions of greenhouse gases further in all sectors. We're now talking about Fit for 55, or maybe later Fit for a higher number. And quality information becomes every year more essential to provide a solid foundation to Orion decision making in the mitigation, in the adaptation, and in the transformation, actually, which is needed in the European society and economy. These information needs will not be filled in Europe by simply adding more centimeters or meters to the pile of scientific articles produced every year. These papers are, of course, very important. They need to be there, but they need to be digested. They need to answer or to provide at least elements of answer to the key questions that policymakers and citizens also have around the climate change, the climate change issue. So interactions of scientists of different disciplines, interactions between scientists, stakeholders, government, civil society are absolutely key to help shape the information packages that are as policy relevant without being policy prescriptive than this produced by IPCC. And I really hope that the assessment mechanism that is in preparation at the European scale of that climate related scientific information can be delivering soon in the same spirit as what the IPCC has done. I will simply conclude with a few potentially useful keywords to remember when thinking about all this process. And those keywords are the following: interdisciplinarity, dialogue, assessment, digestion, and the need to have digested products. A pile of scientific paper is not digestible. Policy relevance and sense of ownership. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, Jean-Pascal. I think that sense of ownership and shared ownership is really key to making progress in so many ways. And yeah, thanks for that really excellent overview of the IPCC and where we need to develop work further in Europe. We're now shifting track slightly. I suppose it's my great pleasure to introduce Simone Borghesi from EAERE. Simone, you can either sit at the table or you just to say it's quite loud there and quite distracting, but if you're willing to take the challenge, that's really good. Simone is the President-elect of EAERE, a Director of the FSR Climate and EUI and of the University of Siena. So welcome, Simone, and I look forward to your presentation. Thank you.
Okay, should work. So thank you, Frank. It's a real pleasure and honor to be such a distinguished panel. I will build up on the title. The title of our event is Maximize Synergy of Research, Governance and Innovation. And what I'm presenting now is a project that does exactly this, or at least it tries to maximize the synergy between research and policy. It's a project that exchange information among policymakers and exchange information from research to policymakers and backwards, as I wrote in my title. Why? Because this research is actually evolving along with the policy. So not only informs policymakers, but is somehow informed by the evolution of the policy. The title of the project is DICE, which stands for Deepening International Cooperation on Emissions Trading. And as you can guess, it's about emissions trading. It's about the evolution and the alignment of emissions trading. As you all know, emissions trading system has increased worldwide quite rapidly, I would say. Today, they are in force in 25 jurisdictions. They cover 70% of global emissions, 1/3 of the world population. And other jurisdictions are planning to come on board. They are under development in 7 ETSs, under consideration in 15 more. But each ETS has its own features. And this motivates the research, namely, how can we align the existing ETSs? How can we extend and link the ETSs? Because linking would lead to a common carbon price. So the goal of the research has been to support European and member state policymakers in deepening international cooperation and possibly integrating carbon markets. It started in September 2019 and is about to finish at the end of the year. And it saw the active participation of several jurisdictions, of the regulators of the main ETSs. So the European Commission for Europe, but also the regulators of China, New Zealand, California, Quebec, and Switzerland. We performed a comparative assessment focusing on 5 main aspects. The implications for possible linking of different environmental ambitions in the ETSs in terms of scope, frequency, and policy mix, of different price containment mechanisms. Some use a quantity-based, other price-based containment mechanism. Different carbon leakage prevention measures, different environmental integrity, for instance, in the use of the offsets. And finally, we propose possible reforms to improve integration. I don't have time to go through everything. I will just focus on the last aspect and focus on what we call a price collar proposal. Basically, there's been little linking so far. And one possible reason is that there are price-related barriers to linking, and mainly two barriers. One is the immediate impact that linking can have on the price of domestic allowances, what we call the price impact of linking. The second is, once you link, the risk of subsequent impact of linking on the price of domestic allowances if major shocks or policy changes occur in your partner, in your linked ETS, what we will call the price risk of linking. This latter risk could be, in our view, neutralized through a price collar, namely setting an upper bound and a lower bound that limits the fluctuations of prices. Why so? Because this would give more certainty on the future price, and reducing the price risk would probably facilitate new linkages. Obviously, the price collar reflects the minimum and the maximum price that each jurisdiction has in mind and is willing to accept. Just to visualize the idea, we have two jurisdictions, the red and the green one, that have totally different views, so different price collars. There is no room for linking. But if there is the possibility of an overlapping in the price corridors, as in this diagram, then there is room for linking, because the price will satisfy the desire of both jurisdictions. If it stays, in this example, above the minimum price of the green jurisdiction and below the maximum price of the red jurisdiction. Obviously, the price collar do not need to be constant over time. They can change because our views of the problem change. We also have that at the beginning, the price collar do not overlap, so there is no room for linking. But as time goes by, as in this example, the price collar of the red jurisdiction goes faster than the other and converges to the other. So that at some point, here at T double star, the two price collar converge, and also the price in the joint carbon market converges to a unique price. This is obviously just a hypothetical path, just to visualize what we have in mind. But what matters is that in our view, linking system with the price collar could have international coordination of carbon prices. The collar could act as a reference point for other jurisdictions who might want to join the linked system. Other partners might come on board because they know that the price will be within that range. Obviously, the wider the collar, the less likely that the floor or the ceiling are reached and activated. If the floor is activated, more emissions are abated with respect to case of no floor. If the ceiling is activated, less emissions are abated with respect of no ceiling. But over time, both floor and ceiling are likely to be triggered, so the opposite effects might cancel out. As I said, this is an evolution of research. And so what's next? We are already building a new project, setting an observatory for the assessment of the UETS, basically working on the data to provide information on the evolution of carbon markets to policymakers. We call this project COAS, Collaborative Observatory for the Assessment of OGS, but actually the acronym, as you can imagine, is a tribute to Ronald Coase, who provided a key theory underlying the functioning of the ETS. And so this will start in 1 month, basically, with the beginning of the year. And if you are interested, want to know more, I leave you with more information, and I'm happy to answer your questions.
Hello. Okay, thank you very much, Simone. I think we'll come to questions at the end. I hope people remember that. But I have a quick question for you, actually, in my own interest. That colour, does that exist now in any emissions trading system? That there's a price upper bound and lower bound.
Some do have price collars. Well, not explicit as I put it this way, but let's say they are not the majority. And in any case, looking from the European perspective, that's something that we do not have. There is a large debate on whether to introduce a price floor in the European system, but I think we should have actually auto pricing. That's, let's say, the innovation of the proposal, if I may say so.
Yeah, no, I was aware of the price floor, but I didn't know those. Yeah, thank you for confirming that. Kerry, you want to say something?
I had a question as well, and indeed linked to price floor, or whether the collar needs to have the upper side as well, or would your idea of this kind of mechanism facilitating linking work also with simply having just a lower collar, so the floor?
Let's say that it would be a possibility, but I don't think it will work as well as it will work with price collar. The IMF, for instance, has proposed a minimum price, but I don't think this gives the price certainty, so to speak, that the price collar would provide. And moreover, the price collar would probably fit the requests of both sides. There are people who think the price are too low, people who think the price are too high. If you set a price collar, you set the future path, and actually you give a signal to your potential partners.
Okay, thanks Simone for clarifying those points. And I'd now like to go on to our next speaker, who is Marcus Muller, and Marcus is Managing Director and Chief Investment Officer of ESG and Global Head of the Chief Investment Office of the Deutsche Bank. And Marcus is a virtual panelist. So Marcus, are you there? Marcus,
yes, I'm here. I hope you can see and hear me.
We can see and hear you.
Hello?
Yeah.
Perfect. Excellent. Yeah, thank you very much, and sorry that I can't be with you tonight. So greetings from Dubai. I unfortunately had to leave the COP a couple of days ago, but I was really privileged to be on the ground and being today with you at this very distinguished panel. I don't have any slides, but what I want to present to you today are my thoughts from a financial market perspective about science-based decision-making processes, and from an economist point of view. And I know that we are all certainly economists here, but what we really need to remind ourselves is the following. What we are facing with climate change, biodiversity loss, degradation of nature in general, is that we really face a market failure based on the fact that we haven't factored in the systemic value of nature into our policy decision-making process, but also in our business decision-making process. The world community has still not understood the differences between stock and flow, price and value. This is something which we need to get back into the system. And over the last 150 years, if we may want, the global society has moved away from the origin of a product until the final product. So we are not anymore able to assess the entire value and the entire system which stays behind the product. We need to reveal this information in order to form better decisions. Currently, a decision in the context of nature just is made based on the gross, but not on the destructive elements of the decision itself. So the gross domestic product is the best example for it. In order also to get the finance flowing into this direction, we need to show the international capital market what does it mean from a destructive point of view to finance A, B or C projects. So we really need to work out, based on science, this negative impact over time, because identifying that a project financed has been a more costly project in the aftermath is not ideal. We have to know it at the beginning before we start financing an activity. And this is something the international financial community really needs. Decision based on science-based foundations, but in a way, as we already have heard at the beginning, that is suggestible, that is understandable. How many decades have the international finance community worked on price-to-book ratios, on price-earning ratios, on metrics which are understandable and common in the international financial market usage? Now, for nature, we need to do the same, because in the end, what is climate change? Climate change is a reaction function of nature based on the fact that we have overused nature, which is based on the fact that we didn't understand the systemic value of nature. If we go back to local communities, to the indigenous people, they do know the systemic value of nature, the problems which are deriving out of the fact if they would overuse nature, because the quality and quantity of the ecosystem services we are all dependent on will decrease. Nature and its services is an inevitable input factor for humans' creation of output in order to be consumed. And this is something what we need to make really completely transparent. I like exactly what Simone has presented, especially on the ETS system. And I would like to augment a little bit the title. It was policy decision making, but we need to enhance this also to business decision. Because in the end, policy can give guardrails, but if the business decision making process is not informed, at the same time, decisions will be made wrong also in future. Let me conclude with the following. We need really a kind of environmental literacy. Literacy means not just the capability to read and write. Literacy also means, based on this knowledge, to form new ideas and to express new ideas in order to develop. What we are currently missing really in the global community is exactly this environmental literacy about the systemic effect of nature and its incorporation in our economic and business decision-making process. Let me stop here. I know everyone else also will have something to say to it. This is just an impulse from me, what we need beyond the policy framework we are acting in. We need more information exactly in the capital market itself in order to make a positive impact happening. And last week I was on a panel where someone said, for instance, in the ocean, oh, is it too risky? No, in the ocean, investment in the ocean is not too risky, because we do already everywhere investment in the ocean economy. The problem is just that the investment in the ocean economy are currently having a negative impact instead of a positive impact. Why? We do not factor in the information we need in order to turn around this impact. And this example shows me that it's possible, but we need the information, because information are the fuel, and I've used deliberately this word now, for international finance flowing in the right project, which are at the end nature positive and profitable. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to talk from a financial market perspective about this important topic.
Thank you, really, thank you very much, Marcus, and it's really pity you're not here with us, but that was a fascinating insight into what you said as a market failure and how we need to address that market failure and address it quickly in terms of bringing in the value of the wider, avoid the destructive pathways that we're on in terms of the current market. And I guess that goes straight into the Article 2 on C of the Paris Agreement, financial flows going into sustainable development. Our next speaker is Phoebe Koundouri, excuse me for mispronouncing her name.
Yes, I'm here.
Great. You're the EAERE President and co-chair of UNFCCC Europe. Phoebe, please give us your presentation.
Thank you very much for this prestigious panel. I am the president of the European Association of Environmental Resource Economies, the co-organizer of this panel, and I want to particularly thank our co-organizer institutions, but also the speakers that we invited, and they are there. So not just Simone Borghesi, the president-elect, but also Masaba Thioye, the coordinator of the UN InnovationHub on climate change, and Markus Müller, the chief investment officer of Deutsche Bank. Thank you for being here. And I'm just very quickly gonna try to make the argument for how important is a science-based sustainability transition, science-based transition to climate neutrality and climate resilience, and try to showcase how we think we can escape from the multiple current crises into a pathway that will lead us to sustainable economies and societies that will interact in a resilient way with the environment. The global crises now are many: the pandemic, the economic recession and inflationary pressures, climate change, biodiversity collapse, the war, aggravating energy and food crisis, inequality across the world within an increasing population framework. And our basic blueprint is the only, at the moment, is the only international agenda signed by 193 countries are the SDGs. The 17 SDGs, the 169 targets within them, and every year as United Nations Sustainable Development Network, we publish a report that quantifies the progress within each nation of the world with regards to these targets. The 2022 report showed a stagnation, mainly due to COVID, but also showed many failures that are around in our system, in which have been revealed due to the COVID situation. What is important to understand is that this is a very holistic, integrated, interdisciplinary framework on which the investment programs of each and every country can be formulated in order to simultaneously escape the multiple crises. And given that this panel is focused on European policies, let me also tell you that I am co-chairing SDSN Europe, which is publishing every year a relevant report on SDG performance for each country in Europe every year. And red means very low performance, whereas green means high performance. SDSN globally has 1,800 institutions. The European quarters have 500 institutional members. And given that I am the president of EAERE, let me say that EAERE has 1,200 university members as well. Now, what we are trying to do in the Alliance of Excellence for Research and Innovation on IPCC that I lead is to bring together research institutions, at the moment 5 of them, accelerators, innovation accelerators that accelerate social, financial, and technological innovations that are produced in our research, in order to reach cost-effective solutions that can be massively deployed, and in this way can facilitate the transition to sustainability. We also work, as I already mentioned, with a great number of international and European associations that can create synergies and help in these transition pathways. In terms of our thematic area, climate change, adaptation, mitigation, working on various issues having to do with pathways, green and digital transition, renewables, digitalization, circular economy, nature-based solutions, and so on. In terms of marine ecosystem and blue economy, again, many projects and accelerators on different angles of the problem: marine coastal management, marine spatial planning, offshore multi-use platforms, shipping, aquaculture, fishing, and so on. In terms of water, food, energy, and biodiversity nexus, again, many projects on this very crucial nexus for the land use management of the climate change crisis, and of course a lot on innovation acceleration, because we perceive this as one main driver of the sustainability transition. We need the innovation at cost-effective levels in the market, and at the same time we need a serious upskilling and reskilling effort in order to be able to engage the stakeholders and the labor force in the transition. Let me quickly close this presentation by showcasing the main results from a report that we publish every year as SDS in Europe on the joint implementation of the SDGs on the European Green Deal. And the main thrust of this report is to understand whether the European Green Deal, the Next Generation EU, the climate law, the EU taxonomy, the Fit for 55, the Repower EU, all these policies that are defining the growth strategy of Europe and are supporting the implementation of the European Green Deal are consistent with the SDGs, the UN Agenda 2030, and the Paris Agreement, because this is crucial to understand, and also crucial in further defining and refining our policy framework. So what we did, we gathered all the European Green Deal policies and all the digital and industrial policies of Europe, and we did a machine learning, deep learning exercise in order to see the correlation between the two. We find that there is high correlation between affordable and clean energy, SDG 7, industry, innovation and infrastructure, SDG 9, responsible consumption and production, SDG 12, climate action, SDG 13, partnerships for the goal, SDG 14. These SDGs are very supported by the European Green Deal framework. However, there is low support for no poverty, quality education, gender equality. And unfortunately, these are the social cohesion SDGs. So we find a very weak, let's say, support of the European Green Deal with regards to social cohesion. And if you gather the SDGs in 6 transformations, this is the framework we work: education, health, energy decarbonization, sustainable production of food, cities and communities, and the digital revolution for sustainable development. You can easily show that the European Green Deal is quite strong in transformation for sustainable food, land, water, and oceans. And 3, energy decarbonization, sustainable industry, is less strong on sustainable cities and communities and the digital revolution, and is weak with regards to education, gender inequality, health, well-being, and demography. This makes a case for rethinking European policies, not just in terms of decarbonization and land use, not just in terms of digitalization and sustainable cities, but also putting strong emphasis in social cohesion, because we know that big transformations cannot be achieved without the sincere engagement of the society and without support of the society society and support of the social cohesion. Now, with regards to the national recovery and resilience plans, just to reassess them against the SDGs, again, we find that they are quite efficient in allocating funds of green energy, electrification of transport and energy efficiency, but are less strong on providing funds for food systems, diet and biodiversity goals. And this should be an indication on where the next cohesion funds should be spent. Finally, sustainable finance. Well, as Marcus indicated, we need to integrate the value of natural capital, and we do that explicitly in a section of our report following ecosystem services approach. So we first showcase that in most projects funded by Europe, the biosphere SDGs, the natural capital SDGs, SDG 15, 14, 6, and 13, are the ones with the highest value in terms of contributed capital compared to produced and human capital. And then we do a value transfer meta-analysis regression to identify the willingness to pay for terrestrial, marine, and freshwater ecosystem services, all ecosystem services, provisioning, regulating, capturing, and supporting in the 14 biogeographical and marine regions of Europe. And we find willingness to pay per country, per ecosystem service, and we also find a strong correlation between the countries that are willing to pay more about ecosystem services and those that achieve high performance with regards to the natural capital SDGs, an indication that countries with high awareness of the value and contribution of natural capital in investments are those countries that are better performing with regards to them. And we also make a very strong point touching upon the literature that we contributed quite significantly the last 20 years, that when we are evaluating and doing cost-benefit analysis for long-term projects and projects that are relevant to climate change and natural capital, we should take into account the time declining discount rate, so that the value of natural capital and benefits that are going to derive from conservation of natural capital projects do not get dissolved into the discounting, do not get dissolved, disappeared using a constant discount rate. We also showcase that it is possible to mitigate the regressive effects of EU climate policies by a package of measures that can support, for example, redistributing revenues or lump sum transfer and implementing targeted efficiency measures, job retraining programs, and funding of subsidies. And we show in a general equilibrium analysis that it is possible to ensure more equality, increased GDP, and increased employment while implementing climate policies. A last point I want to make is that, as we showed in the Lansing Commission for COVID-19, the big issue of financing the less developing emerging markets, less developing countries, we need to increase lending to these countries, and we need to have increased support of UN member state financing for these countries. And in addition to this, we, again, touching upon what Marcus says, we need to understand that 1/3 of global assets are managed and now ESG based. And also, if we want to close the funding gap with regards to the SDGs, which we have estimated to be up around 14 trillion, we need to understand that no public money is enough around the world to do that. We need to bring in private money. And in order to bring in private money, we need a big investment in transforming the business sector in order to become SDG and ESG compatible. We need to increase awareness that good and sound ESG performance leads to good financial performance, but also understand that ESG means nothing without the financial sustainability of the company. So we need to engage the companies with the SDGs that do not only take into account environment, social, and governance aspects, but they take into account financial aspects. And that's why we created a hybrid metrics that takes into account the footprint with regards to financial performance per company, but also environmental footprint and social footprint. And we presented a three-step approach for the transformation of companies towards this direction. I will close by introducing the Global Climate Hub of SDSN, which has been put together in order to provide science-based advice with no fee to any government in the world that wants to produce downscale detailed technological policy and financial pathways to climate neutrality. This is the current picture of the climate action SDG performance across the world. This is the projection to 2030. It's not looking good at 2030 either. We don't have a green globe, and that's why we are gonna use the power of the 1,800 member institutions of SDSN across the world to engage governments and other stakeholders in co-designing detailed transition pathways for their climate neutrality. Our climate hub, which I have the honor to lead, includes 9 units, a climate data platforms and digital application unit, a unit on atmospheric physics and climatology from people supporting IPCC, climate and energy modeling, land use modeling, climate and health, innovation acceleration with a partnership with the UN InnovationHub for climate change that Masaba is leading, Just Transition Hub looking at the finances and economics and distributional aspects of the transition, a unit on transformative participatory approaches, creating national living labs for co-designing the pathways, and finally, a unit on education, upskilling, and reskilling. Thank you for your patience very much, and I'm sorry that I could not stay there longer. I stayed for a week at the COP, and I had to connect virtually. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Phoebe, and yes, I'm sorry that you had to leave as well. And I suppose what I got from you is that these big plans that you have are very good at the sort of more, how should I put it, mechanical aspects of the transition, but the social capital and natural capital aspects need more attention, as well as developing those sustainable pathways to the climate neutral future, and which is also at even with the Sustainable Development Goals. So thank you very much, Phoebe. Now we'll go back to the room again, and the next speaker is Marinella Davide, and from Pescara University, Harvard University, CCNC, and so Marinella, you're going to talk us about the distributional effects, and I suppose that brings in the social capital elements as well, so please.
Hi everyone, thank you very much. It's a great honor to speak with this distinguished panel. Yes, as just mentioned, I would focus on the just transition challenges. And in particular, I will present work that I've been doing at Harvard University in collaboration with Joe Aldi and Enrica De Chan. It's related to energy prices, so a different price from what Simone covered before. Yeah, I will just start saying that the European Green Deal emphasizes a lot the need the need for a just transition. So the need of just transition to be at the core of the low carbon strategies. This is reiterated in several initiatives. Many of them has been already mentioned, starting from the Clean Energy for All European package back in 2019, up to the more recent initiative like the Just Transition Mechanism. All these initiatives are aimed at preventing or compensating for the social impact that the climate and energy policies can have on on certain areas, certain vulnerable areas in Europe, or also on some consumers or households. I would focus on this last aspect, and in particular will present this work that try to investigate what's the role of the energy prices in the temperature-mortality relationship. There is no need, I think, to explain now why this is important. We are in the middle of an energy price crisis, and there are many concerns about the fact that many households will not be able to heat their home in the coming winter. To be honest, we started this research actually even earlier. For us, was enough to know that there are millions of European citizens that still are in energy poverty, and working on research with climate models, we noticed that actually the projection for future climate policy implies somehow an increase in the energy prices, at least in the short term. So we decided, okay, let's look at what's the role of energy prices, especially for vulnerable households. We decided to focus on European cities, and in particular we use Eurostat and other different data to analyze 280 European urban areas. We both look at the historical impact, so starting from 1990 to 2017, and then we also try to simulate the future impact in 2030, looking at the climate policy scenarios. We skip the detail on the model, of course, and I will jump on some of our results. So what we find is mainly that high energy prices do have an impact on the temperature, on the mortality connected to temperature. In particular, we find that the mortality impact of both extreme cold and extreme warm temperature is higher when the energy prices are higher. Here you see on the right panel in red that actually the mortality in Europe, in European cities, the mortality connected with extreme cold temperature almost double when the price is explicitly taken into account in our analysis. There is evidence actually of the fact that the households have the capability to adapt to extreme temperature up to certain price limit. So when the prices are very low, there is a decrease in the impact of mortality due to extreme temperature, while after a certain level of energy prices, these start to have a further impact on mortality. We use the historical results to simulate the impact in 2030. In particular, we take the different climate policy scenarios and the energy prices that is connected to them according to the integrated assessment models that have been used in the last IPCC, and we also take the future temperatures We decided to focus on 2030 because in 2030 the temperature changes are still limited, but the energy price index, that is the price that we use to cover all the fuels that are used in Europe to heat or mainly to heat for heating. So the energy price index almost doubled compared to the current levels. What we find, I will show you only the 2 degree, the scenario compatible with the results compatible to the 2 degree temperature increase scenario, because it's because a matter of time. But if you are interested in the detail, we can discuss this later. And we see that actually when we take explicitly into account the energy prices, the mortality, the average mortality increase because when prices are considered. In particular, as you may see from the picture, the distribution of the distribution of mortality changes. There are some regions in Europe where the prices is still low and that they will be able to cope with temperatures, but there are other regions, and in particular Southern Europe, that will have a high impact from the energy prices. This mainly means that the benefit, let's say, of unavoided increase in temperature are somehow offset by the fact that the energy prices are too high for most vulnerable consumers that are not really able to use them to increase their energy expenditure connected to heating or cooling. Conclude saying that, of course, our analysis has some caveats that need to be considered. So we don't take into account the avoided impact in the long term. We focus only on the short terms, and also we don't take into account the changes in the energy mix. However, we find that there is a non-trivial impact of both combined temperature and energy prices if projected in the near future. This highlights that there are possible trade-offs between the long-term mitigation objectives and the short-term adaptation strategies that the households can implement. So, given these results, we want to highlight the importance of an effective just transition mechanism that is able to quickly protect the European consumers. According to the current narrative, the just transition mechanism have a limited power. It's mainly focused on addressing like job losses or recovery compensation in some area that can be impacted by the energy transition toward low carbon energies. However, it should cover, according to us, a broader distributional impact and be able to protect the consumers immediately. What we are seeing now, actually, we know that the current energy crisis is not a result of the energy transition, but we can see it as a result of a slow energy transition. So we are not ready yet we don't have a system that is able to protect the consumers from this energy spikes. And the reply for now of the European member states has been pretty pragmatic and inconsistent. So we need, of course, to accelerate the element of the energy transition, because we know that the price is only one of the elements. Then there is, of course, other elements that are connected more to the energy efficiency and the type of fuels that are available for household consumers. And with this, I'm done. Yeah, thank you very much. If you want to discuss the detail of the study, there is much more, and I'm happy to answer the questions.
Thank you very much. Marinella. I think that was a really fascinating insight into the wider dimensions of the just transition and the need for safety nets for the most vulnerable members of society in order to ensure that they're not adversely impacted by the transition itself. Our final speaker is Masamba Chow, and he is with the UNFCCC Secretariat, and he's working in the innovation area, and he's going to give us an overview of that particular topic right now. So I'll hand over to you, Masamba. I don't know, do you wish to speak from the floor or from the table here? Yes, you do.
Thank you, and good evening to the audience, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to those that are following us virtually. My name is Masamba Thioye. I'm leading the Global Innovation Hub of the UNFCCC Secretariat, initiative that was launched at COP26, and I'm very pleased to be part of this very interesting panel, and thank you for the invitation. So the Global Innovation Hub was put forward to address these two main objectives: to enhance the use of innovation to serve people and planet more, and also to enhance the effectiveness of innovation as an instrument supporting climate and sustainability. Science, we know, search for truth. So we can then say that science is valueless. But the use of scientific information to serve the development of solutions has always a national, what we call innovation. When scientific information is used to develop solutions, it's innovation, and it has an agenda. It can serve power, it can serve people, it can serve the planet. One of the things that the global innovation wanted to really move forward is to explore how we can best use innovation to serve people and the planet. So there are two things that we found were very important. The first is what we call science anticipation. We need to be more aware of what is going on within the laboratory. What are the expected breakthrough scientific discovery, and anticipate how they can best serve people and the planet. But this is not enough. What I will call, let's say, innovation push. We need to do that in relation also to something else that I will call innovation pull. We have developed the SDGs, we have developed climate goal, but what we did not do, we did not translate the SDGs and the climate goal into innovation goal. So those that are developing climate and sustainability solutions do not know what are the expectations in terms of innovation. And this is something very important because it can provide a strong signal. Now, when it comes to enhancing the effectiveness of innovation to serve people and the planet, we are working mainly on 4 aspects. The first is the need to develop a moonshot thinking when it comes to setting goal and target. The situation in which we are currently is the fact that goal and target when it comes to climate and sustainability are not enough ambitious. And they are not enough ambitious because most of the time, those that are setting goal and target set their goal based on their perception of what is possible. They will look at the financial instruments that are already available to them, When you look at the policy instruments that are already available, as well as the technologies that are already available, and this is on the basis of this that they are setting goal and target. And the reason is that they want to be credible, because if they are asked how you achieve your goal and target, if they are not able to respond to this question, they are not credible. But the problem is, if you are looking at those that are developing the solution for climate and sustainability, and you ask them, why are you not developing the transformative solutions that are needed? They will say, because there is no demand, because the ambition is low. So it means that the lack of climate and sustainability solutions that are transformative on the one hand, and the low ambition on the other hand, are locked in a vicious circle in which each of the two is at the same time cause and consequence. And one of the things that we wanted to do is to break this vicious circle. The second element is the fact that when we say innovation, we tend to see innovation at the sectoral level. This is important, this needs to be done, but this can only lead to incremental change. These incremental change are needed, but unfortunately they will not be enough to achieve the long-term goal of the Paris Agreement as well as the sustainability goal. If you want to address this very important challenge, we need to expand the space of innovation to reach the most transformative type of innovation. It means that we need to go beyond sector and go back to the core need, the process and product are satisfying, and explore how innovation, where the product and services are carbon intensive, can support the development of alternative value chains that will satisfy the need while being aligned with the climate goal, while being aligned with the sustainability goal. A quick example that I can provide is when we are engaging with entities like Mayor, and we ask them, how would you do to reduce the carbon footprint of your city? The response is always sectoral. I will act on transport, on building, on waste, and so and so. And on transport, the most popular type of climate action is I will promote the move from combustion car to electric vehicle, which is good, which is important, but this will not be enough. Moving from combustion car to electric vehicle is good, but having less car is much better. So the first question we need to ask is, why car at the first place? And how innovation can be used to reduce the need for car. If you say car is for mobility, then the focus should be on how innovation can serve design our city better, making them more compact, more complete, so that all the products and services that we need are at biting or walking distance. We can either go one step beyond and say, why do we need mobility? We need mobility because of access, because mobility itself is not a purpose, it's a means. The purpose behind mobility is access. How can we use innovation to access products and services with less need and of mobility? To conclude quickly, because I know that we have time constraint, we need to have an integrated approach of innovation. It's not just about technology innovation. It will not be sufficient to address the big challenge that we are facing. Innovative financial instrument will be needed, innovative policy instrument, innovative business model, and the innovative cooperative approach. All this combined will allow to address in an integrated manner, will address the challenge that we are facing. I will just conclude insisting on the need of innovative cooperative approach. We need radical collaboration, otherwise we will not be able to achieve the goal that we are facing. We need to have shared common purpose, so something that will bind us together and that will allow us to understand the need for collective coordinated effort. the need to subordinate specific interests to the common interest. Thank you for your.
Thank you, Masama. I think that was really inspiring in terms of the concepts that you articulated there. And I think what I picked up best was you need that fundamental understanding of what we are doing, why we are doing it, and how potentially we can radically change it. And I think that's the core of innovation. I actually have to go myself to another meeting because I've been called to one. I really found this really an exciting presentation. I thought there was a key theme going through here about accelerating development of knowledge, of innovation, of dialogue, of understanding the pathways, of bringing people with you. So you need to have those safety nets, you need to have the social and natural capital included in your systems. And if you don't do that, then you are not going to achieve the overall goals. We've heard about price as well, but price is top and bottom. We need to get those corridors which are aligned with achievement of the long-term global goal. And what I'll do is, right now, I was told I didn't introduce myself at the start. So my name is McGovern. I'm chair of JPI Climate. What I'd like to do is hand over to Julia, who is vice chair of JPI Climate, and she will close off this meeting. And I'll leave you and great to meet you.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you very much. I mean, we are already at the closing of our session, so I don't know if you have some questions for the panelists. Okay, I think that we really can close this event. I would like to thank you all for being here with us. It has been a great pleasure. We discussed about just transition, innovation, carbon neutrality, adaptation, and we really would like to follow up with you all on this new mechanism and this new process that JPI Climate is about to launch. And we really look forward for this Equinox Summit, and I'm sure that we will have further occasion to discuss further on this. I wish you all the best for these very last days for COP27. Let's see what will be the final result. And thank you again. Thank you very much.
The next few hours will be spent. Next few hours will determine what this topic will be. But in this building, we remember to the conference coming out yesterday, where Victoria Australia's Republic Australia's Indigenous culture, Republic Australia's capacity and nature as a renewable energy power industry,